This is Miss Peña coming live from her classroom. Okay, so you're going to watch the video on 5.9 tonight. If you lost a copy of the printout or you didn't pick it up, you could print it out from the PB Works. Make sure you bring any work that you're missing that you have at home tomorrow, please. Thank you. Tonight you're watching the video for 5.9, write a polynomial function and models. So you should have picked up your notes. If not, the link is there where you can print out your notes. Now the first thing that we're doing is we're given a graph. In that graph, I need you to identify the x-intercepts. So when we're looking at this, my x-intercept would be -2, 0, 2, 0, and -1, 0. So you have 3 x-intercepts just by looking at the graph. They're right there where the graph crosses the x-axis, those little dots. Now, we have an extra point. That extra point is 0, -8. It won't matter if it's a y-intercept or if it's just some other random point. Now, we're trying to come up with the equation to this graph because we don't know it. Now, those x-intercepts, you know if you put them in the parentheses with the opposite sign, it represents it. So we know that is x plus 2, and the other one is x minus 2, and the other one would be x plus 1. But we know there should be a number up in the front. This is an equation, so we're going to set it up y equals a and everything else that we already did. Now, we're trying to solve for this a. Sometimes it's going to be a 1, sometimes it's going to be a fraction, sometimes positive, sometimes negative. We're trying to figure out what is the a here. So, we have that extra point. The extra point consists of 2 variables, x and y. That means my x is 0 and my y is -8. So we're going to go ahead and substitute those values into the equation. So we have -8 equals the a that we're looking for, substitute a 0 for every x. Now, 0 plus 2 would be 2, 0 minus 2 would be -2, and 0 plus 1 would be 1. So you're just adding within each parentheses. So we have -8 equals a times 2, -2, and 1. So we're just going to stop there, just check, make an observation of what we just did, how we got the 2 to -2. We're just adding within the parentheses. Now, what is 2 times a -2 times 1? Because everything next to each other means multiplication. That there would be a -4. Now, if a is there, whether it's in front or in the back, they're being multiplied. How do I solve for a here? Well, I need to get rid of that -4, which means that I would have to divide both sides by -4. -8 divided by -4 gives me a +2. That right there, all I need to do is substitute 2 for the a up in the top, rewrite the whole thing, and that's my answer. So f of x or y, whichever you prefer to put, equals 2 parentheses x plus 2, and then the x minus 2, and then the x plus 1. That right there, if you take the time to actually plug it into the calculator, that would give you that graph that we had on top. Now, the next example, same thing. Let's identify the x-intercepts. So we start off and we have -3, 0. We have a 1, 0 and a 4, 0. So those are your x-intercepts. And then we look for the extra point. The extra point today, or for this problem, happens to be 0, -4. Now, that 0, -4, remember, consists of an x and y value. But so far, we know we need to make an equation. So it is y equals a, who we're looking for, set up an equation with everything that we have, x plus 3, x minus 1, and the x minus 4. We'll wait down just so you could write this. Remember, you're trying to solve for a. So that extra point, remember, it's an x and y value. So we're going to go ahead and substitute it where it belongs. So that's x, that's your y. That means y should be a -4 equals the a who we're looking for. Substitute every x with a 0 like we did in the previous problem. Now, when you add within the parentheses, the first one, 0 plus 3, it's 3. 0 minus 1, -1, 0 minus 4 is -4. So we'll put -4 equals a, that's a 3, next one's a -1, and the next one is a -4. When we multiply 3 times a -1, that's a -3, times a -4, that there should be a +12, I believe. So we have a 12. Now, once again, to solve for a, we need to get rid of that 12, which means we would have to divide. Now, a is -4 over 12, but that right there, you should be able to notice that you could reduce it. So -4 over 12 reduces by 4 on top and bottom, which gives me a -1/3. Now, this is your a. All you have to do is go back and substitute it up in the top. So we're rewriting it. Y equals -1/3, x plus 3, x minus 1, and the x minus 4. So this is what you do when you get it from the graph. The next example is what happens when they give you points. Well, it is going to be example 2, same thing. We're looking for the equation, but now they give you the points, not necessarily the graph. The first points that they give us are right there. Here, we identify which points are x-intercepts and which ones are your extra point. Now, how can you tell if you're wondering how I did that? Remember, anytime you have an x-intercept, your y has to be 0. If you look, the first, the third, and the fourth point all have 0 for y, so those have to be my x-intercepts, and that -110 has to be your extra point. So we start the same thing. Y equals a, x. Now remember, that x comes from the 0, 0. Then that -3 becomes a +3. That +4 becomes a -4. Same thing, you have the extra point. -1 and 10. Every y becomes a 10. Now every x becomes a -1. So we're going to stop here really quick. So we have substituted the y with a 10 and every x with a -1. Now the first -1 stays the same, but that -1 plus 3 becomes a 2. -1 minus 4, that should become a -5. So we rewrite it, our -1, our +2, and our -5. Now when you multiply those numbers, -1 times 2, -2, -2 times -5, that should be a +10. We have to divide both sides, and it turns out the a for this problem is just a 1. So we rewrite it, we go ahead and put it back into the equation. Y equals 1. You don't have to put the 1 if you don't want to, it's your choice. The x, and then x plus 3, and then the x minus 4. So there's the answer, just in case you had to see it again. Now the next problem, once again, they're given to you. Wherever your y is 0, those are going to be your x-intercepts, which would be the first, the second, and the fourth point. The third point, that's your extra point. So we're going to go ahead and write the equation. Y equals the a, that's what I'm looking for. We put the x because of your second point, 0, 0. And then the other one would be x plus 5 because of the -5. And the x minus 6 because of the +6. We go ahead and substitute numbers, -12. Go ahead and put a 1 in for every x. And then you would have to do the addition or subtraction within the parentheses. We have -12 equals a, that's a 1. 1 plus 5, 6. 1 minus 6 is a -5. So we're just adding. I'm stopping it really quick so you could see. If not, remember you could pause this. Now 1 times 6 times -5, that should give me a -30. Now the -30, so we go ahead and divide both sides by a -30. Now that -12 over a -30 should be able to reduce. 6 goes into both. So that right there should become a -2 over a +5. That right there is your a, so you go ahead and just substitute that value right there. So there it is. Now the next one, you would need a calculator, and I'm going to go ahead and show you the calculator for the next problem. So we are looking for the values of when f of x is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. You're going to plug in that y equals, instead of the n's, we're going to plug in x's, x to the third, 2x to the second, and negative 4x plus 3. Once you plug it in, you should go. Okay, so for that last example, example 3, you do need to plug it into your calculator, and I'm showing it because I know most of you don't have calculators at home. From here, you will go to your table, and there's your table, and you're looking for the values of when f of x is, your x is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And they're right there, 2, 11, 36, 83, 158, and 267. Now the video is going to continue on the other thing. So, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Go to a table and get the numbers. Now, these are my numbers. So I'm looking for the value. In the table we saw 1 was 2, 2 was 11, 3 was 36, 4 was 83, 5 was 158, and 6 was 267. What we're going to have to do here is subtract. Now we're going to be subtracting until we're able to see the number end up being the same. So when we do 11 minus 2, that would be a 9. 36 minus 11, that would be a 25. 83 minus 36, 47. 158 minus 83 is 75. And 267 minus 158 is 109. We're going to do it again. You have to keep doing it until you end up with the same answer. So now we're going to do 25 minus 9, which is 16. 47 minus 25, which is 22. 75 minus 47 is 28. 109 minus 75 is 34. Now, are they the same? No, so we need to do it again. So now we do 22 minus 16, which is 6, 28 minus 22, which is 6, and 34 minus 28, which is 6. Now that right there tells us that that's where you have to stop. So you're trying to see how many times does it take, and it takes 3 times to get to 666. So this is considered a third order. That's what they call it. Third order difference is 6. And that's your answer.